anyway, I made a PowerPoint. Let me try to share that with you guys. And by the way, like, feel free to interrupt me anytime and ask me questions. I don't kind of want to make this more interactive. Let's see. This one. Okay, guys, see my PowerPoint? Okay, so just to give you some background, I know Jim showed you my resume. So I spent, good 20 years in finance, and then I was always, really loved sports growing up. Really liked sports analytics. Loved Bill James's baseball abstracts, and then in 2011, my friend Phil Mime and I, he was one of the guys in that video. We decided to write a paper for the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference, and then we presented the paper there, and then the next year we wrote another paper, presented it there, and then out of that we got I got a consulting gig at the Jacksonville Jaguars, and so I did that for a couple seasons. Worked with Tony Khan, the owner's son. He's a great guy, but I was doing that at night while still working in finance. And then finally in 2014, I guess I kind of had a midlife crisis. Finance was good. I liked it. I didn't love it, and so I decided to make a career switch. And then in 2014, joined the Ravens. I was on the coaching side for the Ravens, so I reported to Coach Harbaugh, and then did that for 5 seasons. And but I've always been more interested on the personnel side, and so the Dolphins were looking for somebody to replace Dennis, who went up to Buffalo, I mentioned, and specifically for the personnel side, and worked out really well. So I've been, I just finished my first season with the Dolphins. Entering my second year now, and then my family actually they're still in Maryland, but we're going to move down in July and settle down in Boca actually. By the way, if any of you guys are interested in finance, you can ask me finance questions too, because I spend so much time in finance. Okay, so mentioned earlier, I think Jim mentioned it, like we split football into 2 sides, I guess. There's the coaching side, and then there's the personnel side. So again, with the Ravens, I was on the coaching side, and for analytics, what we do is a lot of game management. So 4th down decisions, whether to go for it or kick a field goal or punt. I got a model for that. Timeout usage, end of half, stuff around the 2-minute warning, challenges. That's the sort of stuff that we spend a lot of time on in game management. There's also some opponent scout work that we do every week. So when we're playing the Patriots, for example, we'll go over their strengths and weaknesses. We'll make recommendations on how we should attack them. We'll talk about their tendencies, like for example, on 3rd and 8 in the red zone, they like to do this or that or whatever. These are the type, defense and offense. And then we'll touch a little bit on play call effectiveness. We'll look across the league to see what sorts of things are working, not working across the leagues. Maybe we can learn some things. And then on the personnel side, I mentioned earlier that, I'm more interested on the personnel side, and that's like trades, draft, free agency. So for the draft, we've got a model that helps us rate all the players in college to try to figure out who's going to be a good pro. Trades, you make a recommendation on trades. So like when we did the big Laramie Tunsil trade last year, GM asked me what I thought, and I gave him my input. Free agency, make recommendations on who we should sign. And then contract structure, there's in football, you could structure contracts a number of different ways with big signing bonus, low signing bonus. You can guarantee, years. Like not in football, not all the contracts are guaranteed. So that becomes a really big component. But anyway, that's an overview of kind of football analytics in general. Does anyone have any questions so far? No questions? Nothing? Okay.
No, sir. So far, so
I have
good.
a quick question.
Yeah.
So when you have your analytics sheet, I guess, ready for the upcoming draft, would you be watching a lot of videos on specific players? Because I know Miami had 3 picks in the first round this year, which was very fortunate. Were you guys having to have a lot of people on your staff look at all the different positions because there was a variety of players?
Yeah, so I myself don't watch a lot of film. So we have a big, college scouting staff, that's more than 10 people. And what I'll do is I'll use their reports as one of the inputs to my model. So my model in general, it takes scouting reports, it takes their college production, so like Joe Burrow had 60 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and then it also takes the combine measurables, so how fast people run, how high they jump, how big they are. And, there's some other inputs as well. And then it kind of looks for similar players in the past and says, okay, this type of player is likely to succeed, not likely to succeed in the NFL. And that's kind of basically how the model works. But so the answer to your question is I myself don't watch a lot of film because that's not my expertise. We have 10 guys who are experts at watching film. And so I'll rely on those guys to be my eyes. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and then you do the measurables with the numbers that they give you, right?
Yeah, it's not like I'm sitting there timing it myself, but in the combine everything's electronically timed now, and so the numbers are pretty accurate. This year was kind of tough because I don't know if you guys know how it works. So there's a combine, and then not everyone gets invited to the combine, or some people are hurt or whatever. And then they have pro days afterwards, like at Alabama or Ohio State, and some of the athletes will test at their pro day instead of the combine. Well, because of the pandemic this year, a lot of pro days were canceled, and so we were actually missing a lot of data this year, which made it really tough. So in previous years, we'd be missing the 40 time on kind of 8% of the draft eligible players. This year the number was 25%, which really stunk. And then, you kind of have to sort of guess at how fast they are. Any other questions? Okay. Hey, before I forget, I'm going to ask you a quiz. Who here knows what the difference between a muff and a fumble? Does anyone know what a difference is between a muff and a fumble? Anyone can answer. No one? Come on, someone's got to know the difference between a muff and a fumble.
I mean, I think a muff would be only off of a special teams play, and it would be off a body part, where a fumble would be on an offensive or player holding the ball and getting it stripped out of their arms.
Yeah, that's right. So a muff occurs when you don't have possession of the ball. So on a punt, let's say you're about to catch the punt and you don't catch it cleanly, that's a muff. A fumble is you have the ball in your possession already and you're running with it and then you drop the ball. So the difference is whether or not you actually have possession of the ball. Okay, so remember that. I'm going to tell you a story later that has to do with that. Okay, anyway, so I just put some examples on how these actually kind of came up over the last. I put this together while I was still at the Ravens. So these things kind of came up while I was at the Ravens. How sometimes we use math. Okay, so here's a question for you guys. Okay, we got a 19-yard field goal on the left we've got a 24-yard field goal on the right. See this angle, these angles here? So the question is the angle of the field goal narrower or wider as we get closer and closer to the goal? Does anyone want to answer that one?
Wider.
Wider. That's right. It gets wider. Oops. Okay, so like this angle is 17.5 on the left, and this angle is 14 degrees when it's farther out. And I for some reason, like people, one day we were having a discussion about this, and people were confused. They were thinking on a close field goal, is it possible that we're too close to the goal, and the angle's tougher? But the answer is no, because the closer you are, the wider the angle is. Now, I think in college, where the uprights are actually wider than the hash marks, it might be a little different. But in the pros, the goal posts are exactly lined up on the hash marks. Okay, so now next question. Okay, so I mentioned before in game management, we help the coaches make decisions on fourth down. So here's the example I have. Eagles are winning 7-0. We got some Eagles fans here, right? Was it Alex? Was it? So they're winning by 7 points. 1 minute left in the game. They've got a 4th and 9 at the plus 35, which means if they try a field goal, it'd be a 53-yard field goal. That's not an easy field goal. The Rams have used up all their timeouts. So the question is, should the Eagles punt or should they kick a 53-yard field goal? So let's go through all the scenarios here. If they punt, the Rams get the ball back, on average at their own 10-yard line. They're down 7 with 1 minute left. If they go for the field goal, if they make it, the game's over. It's a 10-point lead. If they miss the field goal, then the Rams get the ball back down 7 at their own 43-yard line. So they're a lot closer to getting a touchdown. So anyone want to? This is there's no right answer here, but like if this were you, would you punt or would you kick a field goal? Anyone? Sorry. How about anyone would argue for a punt here?
I think I would argue for a punt, but also I think it depends on who the field goal kicker is. Since you worked for the Ravens, you have Justin Tucker. I think I'd go for the field goal. But I'm definitely all for pitting the team back, no timeouts. I would punt it if I didn't have full confidence in my kicker.
Okay. Anyone wants to argue for the field goal?
I think I would kick the field goal because, the 10-point lead, you close the game.
Yeah. So this one, I'll let you know what the model says. The model wants you to punt, actually. So for every, out of all the different scenarios, here's the win probability. If you make the field goal, it's 100%. Win probability, if you miss the field goal, 93%. Win probability if you punt, 98%. So we calculate the break-even field goal probability. So in other words, like if you think you have a 78% chance of kicking that field goal successfully, then you should kick the field goal. But a 53-yard field goal is definitely not 78%. It's probably closer to 50%. So anyway, our recommendation would have been to punt. What actually happened, they actually went for the field goal. They missed it. And then the Rams had a chance to drive and tie the game. But they drove all the way down to the plus 18 before the game ended. So anyway, in general, the quote football analytics people will tell you that teams don't go for it enough, and so that's one of the things that the analytics will tell you is that you should actually neither kicking field goals or punting is good in general. Like going for it on fourth down is better. And when I was at the Ravens, we started following the fourth down models a lot more than, well, before I joined, we didn't have a fourth down model. So like once I joined at the Ravens, Coach Harbaugh was like really interested in football analytics. And you could see like Baltimore's propensity to go for it on fourth down like spiked. And then last year they kind of took it to an extreme. They were by far the most aggressive team, like probably ever, in fourth downs. And part of it was because they had Lamar Jackson, and he's kind of unstoppable fourth and short. But anyway, so they really took this idea and became very, very aggressive with it. Any questions or comments or anything?
I find it interesting that when it comes down to like game time decisions, like you said the Ravens were going for it more like a couple of years ago when you were with them, and now we're seeing a big spike. It's almost as if like the certain players they have like increase their confidence in that situation, in their decision, and now they have like the analytics to back it up, and now they have a player that they know 99% of the time can get the job done. But I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they were aggressive on fourth downs even before Lamar, but then once they got Lamar, they became super aggressive. And I think it was kind of if you watch the playoffs, I think on 4th and 1 during the regular season they were 8 for 8, and of course against Tennessee in the playoffs they go for 4th and 1 twice, and they don't get either of them. And of course, people are like, hey, finally bit them. But in general, those decisions were probably the correct ones to make at the time. It just didn't work out. But yeah, I mean, Lamar Jackson's incredible. Like he makes it a lot easier for them to go for it on fourth and short for sure. Actually, another thing they started doing a lot is let's say they're in they got the ball at call it plus 40, and they're facing a third and long, for example. Typically, third and long is a passing down, right? But if they know they're going to go for it on fourth down, they might run the ball there. So let's say it's 3rd and 8. They might run the ball to set up a 4th and 2 and then go for the 4th and 2. So they've been aggressive running the ball on 3rd and long in the fringe area as well. So all this stuff kind of is connected together in their game strategy. All right, one more. So
question.
Sorry,
Go ahead. Is there an analytics person in the booth during the game doing these live metrics, or how does that?
Yeah, there is. So each team's different. So the guy in the booth is typically either an analytics guy or a coach. For the Ravens, it's this guy Daniel Stern. Actually, this past year, the Athletic. I don't know if you guys know there's a new website called The Athletic. They did a full feature story on Daniel Stern. I actually hired him at the Ravens, I guess 4 years ago, and real smart guy, Yale guy, just incredibly sharp. Like to do game management, you have to be very, very quick on your feet in the booth, and you have to be very decisive, very fast. And he's perfect for that job because he is lightning quick, and he's perfect for that role. I think he's, if not the best game management guy in the league. I mean, he's near the top. But anyway, so if you're more interested in that sort of stuff, I would recommend you find that Athletic article on him. He really is good. Anyone else? Okay, so another part of game management is 2-point conversion decisions. So the situation we have here is, let's see, okay, Tennessee is down 7 with 30 seconds left. They score a touchdown, and so now they're down 1 point. So they could kick a extra point and send the game into overtime, or they could go for 2 to try to win the game in regulation. They're on the road at Los Angeles, and Los Angeles was favored to win this game by Vegas. All right, who wants to argue for kicking one? Going for one, kicking the extra point. No one. No one's kicking the extra point. Really? No one? Okay.
Do they have Derrick Henry in the backfield? Or
At this point, I think they do. Yeah, I don't remember what year this is. But it wasn't Derrick Henry 2019 Derrick Henry. You know what I mean? Okay. Anyone wants to argue for going for two?
I would go for two, only because one, now in Los Angeles for the Chargers, every home game is the opponent's home game, so that doesn't really factor in because they don't have too many fans. So Tennessee essentially has all their fans there, but I think at that point Tennessee had the momentum in the game, so I don't know if that goes into the metrics of the analytics, but I think just the speed of Tennessee's team against the tiring defense of the Chargers, I think I would have went for two.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see what actually happened. They went for two. They did not get it, and they lost the game. So before every game, we'll talk about this exact scenario before every game. So what we'll do is we'll use a model to calculate the probability that we'll have a successful 2-point conversion. And then we'll also calculate the probability that we'll win in overtime. In this case, we agree with the decision. We agree that Tennessee has a higher chance of converting that 2-point conversion than they do of winning the game in overtime. So we think they made the correct choice. Justin, we agree with you, even though it did not work out for them. So, one of the things we talk about a lot is, we want to make the correct decisions with the information at the time. We don't want to, always be whatever, a backseat driver or whatever, a rear view mirror and say, oh yeah, see, they should have kicked the extra point just because it didn't, just because that's how the game worked out. But anyway, so this is another, we have a 2-point conversion chart that tells us whether to go for two or to go for one, depending on the score differential and also depending on how much time is left in the game. All right, does anyone have any questions?
Hey, Eugene, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, my name's Wajid. I was having some mic problems earlier, but I'm really interested. You've been in the game for 8 years. How coaches went from the transition of being aware of analytics and how over the years they've transitioned to actually trusting it into their game management and what they do, as opposed to just seeing that it's there.
Yeah, not quite 8 years. I've done 6. I'm entering my 7th season coming up. But, I was really lucky because Coach Harbaugh is extremely analytical and he buys into all this stuff. He's very sharp. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And so he'll push back, we'll show him some stuff and he'll push back and say, hey, did you consider this? Did you consider that? And, he's always he's always spot on. Sometimes we would give him 30-page analytics reports and just kind of dump it on his desk. And the next day he's like, oh yeah, I was, looking at something on page whatever, 24 and, whatever, and ask a specific question about it. I mean, he's really detail oriented. And so I was really lucky that, he buys in. In general, this is going to sound a little stereotypical, so I apologize. But in general, the older coaches don't buy in as much, and the younger coaches do. So at the Ravens, my audience was a lot of the times Coach Harbaugh and then the younger coaches. And then it was really, the older coaches who were didn't believe it as much. But, it's sort of analytics, my job to communicate effectively, to try to explain concepts as best I can. But, I do talk to my friends across the league. I know a lot of the analytics guys across the league, and it's a common theme that not all the coaches buy in. Some of them get really frustrated. But anyway, so I was really lucky at the Ravens and at the Dolphins too. On the personnel side, I mean, the scouts, they're always very open-minded about the analytics, the numbers that I show them. So I've been really lucky in both places. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Shen, I was very interested. So let's say when you were with the Ravens, you had a play like this. Would the actual play call, are you aware of what the play call will be? Does that factor in, let's say, teams practice 2-point conversions in practice all the time. Let's say they have an 80% conversion rate in practice. Does that ever factor into your decision here or your model? Let's say Joey Bosa is injured on the Chargers, so maybe you can do a handoff to the left or right side. He's not there. Does that ever factor in?
Not into our models, no. Our models are determined pregame. They don't let us have computers in the booth. So what we'll do is, Daniel, for example, Daniel Stern, the guy I was telling you about, like he'll tell Coach Harbaugh the analytics recommendation, and we don't expect Coach Harbaugh to listen to it 100% of the time. He factors into, other factors into consideration. So he'll know that Joey Bosa is not in the game. He'll know that so-and-so is fatigued. He'll know what our 2-point conversion play is. And ultimately, he's the decision maker. And then, we kind of support whatever decision he makes, if that makes sense. All right. So I know some of you aren't going to work into analytics and probably, hopefully you'll be GMs one day or whatever. I just wanted to put up a slide on it to describe how analytics fits in the organization. So the goal is, I mentioned that Coach Harbaugh is the ultimate decision maker, right? And then, here at the Dolphins on the personnel side, Chris Greer is the ultimate decision maker. So our job is to provide the decision makers like Coach Harbaugh and Coach Flores and Chris Greer meaningful data and meaningful insights so that they can do their job better. And like I said, I've been really lucky. Our decision makers are very open-minded, and they like to consider all sorts of different inputs whenever they make decisions. Another goal is to encourage the entire organization to utilize data to augment the traditional decision-making process. So because people have been going for fourth downs and drafting players for ever since the NFL was born, right? And they know how to do things their way, which is great. And then so we just want to encourage them to use some more data evidence-based approaches to augment their traditional process, because you don't want to go in there and tell them, hey, look, you're doing everything wrong. You kind of want to speak their language so that and work within their framework so that you can get more buy-in. As far as how analytics fits into the organizational structure, so like the Ravens and the Dolphins kind of do things a little differently. So you could either have a centralized group or you could have siloed groups. At the Ravens, we had the analytics groups completely separate. So there was a coaching analytics group, and then there was a personnel analytics group, and I was in the coaching analytics group, and I reported to Coach Harbaugh. Some teams in the NFL do it this way. I think the majority of them, including the Dolphins, do it the other way, which is having a centralized group. And typically the centralized group report up the GM silo, either through football operations or through the scouting department. And there's pros and cons of each approach, right? So the pro of having the siloed group is that the analytics group is more responsive to the needs of the group, and there's potentially more buy-in because they think, hey, they're one of us. They're on the coaching staff or they're on the scouting staff. The pro of having a centralized group, like the way we have in the Dolphins, is that there's more communication between the coaching analytics efforts and the personnel analytics efforts. I sit next to Max, the guy who focuses mostly on the coaching stuff. So we communicate a little better, and we can coordinate, and we can share a lot better. Either way we do it, there's usually a liaison between the analytics group and the coaching staff. And that's true, in football, baseball, basketball. They all evolve that way. So, I know guys on the Rockets, for example, the analytics guy there, he used to be a pure analytics guy, making reports, and now he's the guy going on the road with the team to tell the coaches, what the analytics reports are saying about the upcoming opponents. Baseball, same thing. They've evolved so that there's always a guy on the coaching staff that implements the defensive shifts, or other stuff they're doing, the bullpen usage stuff that they've come up with, and that's pretty important in terms of getting the analytics ideas onto the playing field. And then just in terms of staffing, in baseball, the analytics has sort of taken over baseball more than any other sport. So in baseball, analytics are almost pretty much running most teams now. They have very large staffs. I would say basketball is kind of behind them, and then football is probably behind basketball. But in baseball, like the Dodgers, they'll have like 12 people, 6 programmers, and 6 analysts. And I wrote this on the slide. It's typically this 1-to-1 ratio, of programmers and analysts. And the way it evolves over time is that the first analytics hires are kind of generalists. So you hire a guy who's a good programmer, good statistician, and really good communicator, because they got to communicate the results to the decision makers. So I would count myself as someone like that. I'm not the best programmer. I'm not the best statistician, but I can communicate ideas to the coaches okay. And then as the analytics staffs grow, then you get specialization. So the Dodgers, when they hire, they're looking for the best programmer, who may or may not be a good statistician, who may not have any communication skills or whatever. And then they're looking for the best statisticians who might not be able to program. And then they're looking for great communicators, and then making them the liaison to the coaching staff, for example. So anyway, that's how the analytics staffs have kind of evolved over time. Does anyone have any questions about this sort of stuff? No? Okay. Next slide. Okay, before we do this slide, I was going to tell you the one funny story that I have from from my days at the Ravens. So 2015, we were having a really bad season. Right? I think we finished 5-11. This was the season where Joe Flacco is injured. I mean, like half our team's injured. There's one specific game against the Rams where, you guys know who Aaron Donald is? He's probably the best defensive player in the game, right? So he tackles Justin Forsett, our running back. He basically picks him up and tosses him like a rag doll, and of course Justin Forsett's arm breaks, and he's out for the season. And then later in the game, Aaron Donald kind of just trucks whoever's trying to guard him right into Joe Flacco's knee. Joe tears an ACL, and he's out for the season. So anyway, the season was kind of a disaster for us. And but I give Coach Harbaugh a lot of credit. He kept the team playing really hard. He kept everyone motivated. And one of the things he did that season was he invited players to come up and address the team during our team meetings about how they overcame adversity, because we were facing a lot of adversity that season. So, so-and-so to go up and describe how they, grew up in, really impoverished environment, and then they overcame it with hard work or whatever. So anyway, we had this guy, his name was a punt returner named Jeremy. And so Jeremy, goes in front of the team and talks about how he overcame adversity. Like the first team that he was on, I forgot what it was, like the Packers or whatever. He was the punt returner, and then he muffed the punt, and the Packers cut him. And so he's really depressed, facing adversity. But then he got a second chance. So I forget the team name. Maybe the Lions. The Lions pick him up. We're like, oh man, that's great. He really stuck it out. He's resilient. That's really good stuff. And then so goes to the second team, the Lions. They're playing really, really well. And then one game, he muffs a punt, and the Lions cut him. And then we're thinking to ourselves, wait a minute, are we sure we want Jeremy to be our punt returner? And then he's like, okay, I'm feeling really depressed. I'm down on myself, but facing adversity, I keep working hard, and I get signed to a third team, and I forgot. Well, let's say it's the Vikings. So the Vikings sign him, and he's playing really well. And of course, what happens? He muffs a punt, and they cut him. And then by this time, everyone's kind of looking at each other in the team meeting. We're like, dude, are we sure we want this guy to be our punt returner? Because like the most important thing for any punt returner is you can't muff the punt. You have to catch it, right? So anyway, by the time the guy was finished, we were all like, man, I don't know, maybe we should find another punt returner. So what happens? Of course, a couple weeks later, Jeremy muffs a punt, and we cut him. So anyway, I thought that was one of the funniest, most ironic things that happened at the Ravens. Okay. Anyway, so moving on. I put this slide up just to talk about these are some things that a lot of people in the football analytics, kind of Twitterverse talk about, or the research talks about. So none of this stuff is top secret. I wouldn't be telling you any top secret stuff anyway. But so a lot of people, like the big thing right now is, do running backs matter? And I guess traditional football, axiom is that you have to run the ball to win. And one of the stats that people cite is the teams that run the ball more. There's a high correlation with running the ball more, rushing attempts, with winning. And so you might say that, oh wow, we should just run the ball more, right? But what the analytics people will tell you is that it's not correlation. It's correlation but not causality. You got the causality wrong. So what happens is, in the second half, when you're winning, you start running the ball more to bleed the clock, to make the game shorter. And so it's not running causing winning, it's winning causing running. And the extreme example is, taking a victory knee at the end of the game. Like, that's highly correlated to winning too, but it's not like you want to be taking knees in the third quarter. You know what I mean? So, that's one of the things that the analytics community has talked about. And if you run the numbers, the NFL these days is a passing league. The most success, the Ravens are the exception, but the most successful teams in the league pass the ball well, and on defense they defend it against the pass well. The other thing that the analytics community talks a lot about is fourth downs. I already mentioned that. In general, teams don't go for fourth downs enough, according to the analytics. And so the idea behind that is that basically every possession is precious. And so you only get, call it 10 possessions in a game, and you have to make the most of every single one of them. If you punt, you can't score. That's not to say that you should be going for it, all across the field. Like there's a high school football coach in Arkansas who does that. We definitely don't recommend that. But fourth and short, fourth and one is in general a go for it situation. And also when you're in the fringe, which is call it the plus 35 to plus 40 area, that's a heavy go for it area as well, because it's too long for a field goal. a punt won't net you that many yards. So that's why you want to be more aggressive on fourth downs there. And then another one that people have talked about a lot, there've been papers written about it, is trading down in the NFL draft. So teams that trade down in general create value. Part of the reason, kind of the theory, is that people are overconfident that they know exactly how a person's going to turn out. So if they see someone that they covet, they'll give up a lot to go get that player because they're kind of overconfident that he's going to play well. Meanwhile, the team trading down now has 2 draft picks, and I guess if you do run the numbers, do the studies, you'll see that having 2 draft picks typically gives you a higher chance for success than having the one higher one. So a lot of the successful teams in the league have traded down a lot and created a lot of value for their teams. Does anyone have questions about any of this stuff?
You talked about trading down. Like, what goes into all the metrics and the numbers of trading down? Is it the player evaluation, or is it the percentage of the pick success?
Yeah. So most of the teams in the NFL, they use this Jimmy Johnson trade chart. So we know that if you trade down from 6 to 16, for example, you'll pick up, call it a second round pick or whatever. And then what we'll do is we'll look at, on average, how successful the number 6 pick is, how successful the number 16 pick is, and then how successful a second round pick is. And then, what you'll find a lot is that, the package of 16 and the second round pick is superior to the 6, for example. That's kind of how we do that analysis. Any other questions?
Yeah, in regards to the draft and free agency, I was wondering kind of if there's any sort of market inefficiency where analytics may say that certain position or positional value is more, tenable than a traditional football convention would suggest.
Yeah. Okay. So the analytics, I've done some work on that, positional importance, and this won't come as a surprise, but quarterbacks is by far the most important position in football. I think everyone knows that. The one that I think is incredibly undervalued is tight ends. So the best tight end in the league, they probably make $10 million to $11 million, whereas the best wide receivers in the league make $20 million. And so when you get a guy like George Kittle, who's one of the best tight ends in the league, I mean, he is an absolute bargain. If they sign him for $12 million or whatever and set the record for tight ends, he's still going to be an incredible bargain because he's such an impactful player. I think tight ends are extremely useful because they disguise run pass. And so when you have a tight end who can block really well and catch the ball really well, the defense does not know whether or not you're going to run or pass. And that's a big deal. When the defense does not know if you're running or passing, it puts them in a bind, and it's a huge advantage if the defense knows if the defense knows if you're going to run or pass. And I think tight ends are key. For a good tight end can disguise that for the offense. Does any other questions? Okay, is that it? No. Okay, sorry, I got one more slide. So for those of you who are interested in learning more about football analytics, I wrote some resources down for you. So every year the NFL hosts this Big Data Bowl contest. Not every year, they've done it 2 years now. And so right now we have the XY coordinates for all 22 players on the field. It's called the Next Gen Stats data. And they release a subset of that data every year as a contest. And, they like last year they had a Kaggle contest. And it's if you're really interested in that sort of stuff, it's cool to follow. And I would urge you to participate. You know, if you have that skill set. And then I mentioned the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference. That's where I got started. You know, at a minimum, you can go on their website and, you know, watch a whole bunch of videos or read a whole bunch of the papers for the research paper contest. That's always been my favorite part of the conference, the research paper contest, especially that, you know, where I started. Jim mentioned that, you know, I started a journal with my buddy, Phil Myman. It's the Journal of Sports Analytics. So there's some good papers in there. You know, if you encourage you to write your own papers and submit them to my journal, and then we'll get them reviewed and give you feedback. And then, you know, I wrote some guys that I follow on Twitter or whatever, or read on, you know, the web. Bill Barnwell of ESPN, Mike Sando of The Athletic, Joe Capadia of The Athletic. He's the one who wrote that article on Daniel Stern. Pro Football Focus is really good. Football Outsider is also another good analytics website. And I think that's all I got. I put one last slide in here. So this is my family at the 2015 Pro Bowl. We got my family posing with J.J. Watt, Andrew Luck, and Drew Brees. So, you know, my family's enjoying the journey in the NFL as well. It's been a lot of fun for us all. But anyway, like, you know, happy to answer any more questions that any of you guys have.
Eugene, we had people participate in the Sloan Conference maybe about, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. We actually had, there's that contest that groups of students can enter from different colleges, and there's like an MBA level and there's an undergraduate level, and we didn't do anything. We knew beforehand we lost, but I guess part of the thing that you had to be considered is you had to register for the conference. So myself and one of our professors from ITOM, Dr. Bahara, took maybe, I'd say that, well, there was a group of 4 that went up to be there. In fact, one of the guys works for the chief of staff for the Florida Panthers now, Jerome Burke. He was on there, and we had some other guys, very analytical people, and it was interesting. But those folks had expressed a need or a desire to participate there, so it was pretty cool. Maybe we can do that again someday. I saw that when you put up there, we talk about in management centralized organizations and decentralized organizations, and for the type of management that we're in the service industry, where it's not as quantitative, it's not as black and white, 2 + 2 always doesn't equal 4. But in terms, when you say centralized, it's almost that an analytics department is centralized going directly through a silo to a coach or a GM, as opposed to being decentralized. If you're decentralized in an organization, you have more autonomy, you have more, you don't have to report everything, you can have your own set of rules. Now, as long as you're following the strategic guidelines and objectives of the organization. But I guess for analytics departments, because the coach has the end say, or the GM, I guess the word centralized has to be used.
I'm sorry, so what's your question?
I'm saying is that in centralized, when we talk about centralized organizations in the art of management in service industry, that's sort of constricting the people that are involved in that, because everything has to go through the top, has to go through the president or the vice president. If it was decentralized, meaning away from center, if you look at the organizational chart, they have a lot more autonomy in what they can do and make decisions. Yeah. You guys don't appear to have that. It's pretty much, here's what it is, and it goes directly to the decision makers.
Yeah, well, okay, so like I said, I mean, at the Ravens, it was we split up the groups. So, there was a coaching analytics group and a personnel analytics group, and, we kind of operated, as you would say, autonomously. And so, unfortunately, the downside of that is there's not there can be a lot, you can be hurt by lack of communication, right? So we probably didn't share information as much as we should have. There's probably duplication of effort at times, like people working on the same thing. And so, I think when you have it that way, when it's split up like that, it's really important for the two different groups to communicate with each other.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does, yeah. And one other thing, and I'm sure the students have questions as well. In terms of a career in analytics, sport analytics, how do I put this? Can it be learned? Can it be trained? Does it have to be innate? Obviously, there has to be some quantitative skills. Do you have to come pre-prepared or preloaded, I guess, even at the internship level, or can people enter this with little to no knowledge, or I don't know? Tell me.
Yeah, now we definitely looking for people with a minimum amount of programming skills and statistics ability, quantitative skills. So, for example, I'll tell you, we just hired someone to help us analyze the next-gen stats data. That's the player tracking data, the one where we have the XY coordinates of all 22 players on the field. And what we did for that is we held a contest where, like we had 4 finalists, and we gave the next-gen stats data to people, and they had to write a program to predict whether or not the play was going to be the pass was going to be complete or whatever it was. And whoever did the best, you have to have really good quantitative skills. You have to know some machine learning. You have to program well, and so that's kind of our screen. Like anybody who joins the group, pretty much has to be able to do that. And then from my point of view, like you have to be a good programmer, because my goal at the Dolphins is I want to create an analytics department that survives me. I want to build up systems and processes that will be used 10 years from now. So like the fourth down model that I created for the Ravens, they still use it. And that's really satisfying for me to know that they do. And similarly over here, I want to create a draft model, a free agent model. I want to create processes that 10 years from now, after I retire or whatever, I can come back and be, hey, man, they're still using my model. And in order to do that, you need to automate reports. You need to automate everything you do. You need to automate, all the calculations that you do, so that when you come in Monday morning after the weekend's games, everything's already calculated. And you really need good programmers to make that happen. So I'm making a big effort when I'm hiring, people to have, good. Everyone's basically got to have good programming skills. I think that's a must. That's me though. Like so, other teams who might have smaller analytics staffs. Like I said, I mean they'll go for more of the generalist approach. They'll look for somebody who's good at programming, good at statistics, and really good communicator. Whereas for me, I'm at a stage where I'm looking for excellent programmers at this point.
Okay, absolutely. You mentioned something about your model and what you designed and what you left there, and you want to come back. And it brought up the phrase or the term intellectual property. So when you design something for a team, is that theirs or is that still yours? Could you have taken that? Or is that part of the deal in your contract? And I'm not trying to get personal, but when faculty do something, it's theirs, that they can research about it. Maybe you can talk to that?
It's theirs. So the Ravens fourth down model is the Ravens. When I came to the Dolphins, I made a new one, a better version, and I trolled my friends back at the Ravens saying, "I can't believe you're still using my antiquated model. It's I got one that's so much better now." But you know, like once you do the second version of the model, you kind of know the weaknesses of the first one, and so you can kind of do a better version of it. And that's what I did at the. It's the same structure, but you know, it's just got more features, and I think it's more accurate.
Awesome. I'll turn it back over to the students. I'm sure we have a few more questions.
Mr. Shen, I was going to ask, my comprehension of tennis is pretty good because I played the sport my whole life. So when I look at the analytics of matches, depending on the players and the surfaces, I understand it very well. But then again, it's not a team of however many players there are in football, which I don't know about that much. So my question to you is, I was curious about how vast does your knowledge have to be about the game itself to be able to be an analyst such as yourself?
Well, the more the better. Like, I didn't know all the X's and O's, and that's probably still my weakest. After my first year with the Ravens, you know, I shared an office with two of the coaches there, and they taught me X's and O's. So one of the things I did that off season was I coded up their playbook. So, you know, like if this guy's here, this guy's here, this guy here, this guy here, it's an under front. If it's this like this, it's an over front. If here, it's an even front, odd front, all this stuff. And so by doing that, I learned some X's and O's. But by no means, I mean, like that stuff is so complicated. One off season, I was in the linebacker room with the rookies, and you know, going over the playbook, and then we would have a walkthrough, and you know, there wouldn't be enough players to build the team, so the coaches would have me play like will linebacker, you know, during the walkthrough, and it's crazy, right? Like, you know, they'll line up, and then first of all, you have to figure out where you're lining up, away from the tight end or whatever, and then depending on the play call, you know, you'll have a certain assignment. Like, okay, on this play, I got it. I'm guarding the tight end, you know, but then, and you have to decide this like within split seconds, right? And what kills me though is that when the offense goes in motion, like your responsibilities change, you know. So instead of doing the tight end, now you're guarding the back or whatever. And I mean, honestly, it you know, had my head swimming. And you know, basically after that, I'll never say that a football player is stupid. You know, I mean, it's incredible how fast they have to process in the seconds right before the snap. So to answer your question, I'm not good at that part. But you know, like I've studied the CBA, I've studied the rule book. You know, the more not, you know, I'm always reading about it, all the latest news. I'm kind of an NFL news junkie, you know. And then I'm always reading papers on the analytics. So I'm always doing my own research. So the more football you know, the better. But you know, I wouldn't say you have to be an expert at everything, though. I mean, it's hard to find somebody who is. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mr. Shen?
Mr. Shen, I was wondering if you could speak on what a typical work week would be like from when you were with the Ravens. So let's say, for example, we're deep into the season, it's week 9, week 10. What does your week look like when you're coming off that Sunday game and then you're coming into the facility on Monday leading up to kickoff on Sunday?
Yeah, so when I was at the Ravens, Mondays are always the longest day. So that's when we have to get our reports out because the team's really focused on the next opponent by Monday. And, you know, every coach has different reports that they want to see. And so, you know, Monday morning, I'm waking up at like 5 and going home. I mean, some of the coaches sleep at the office. I mean, it's ridiculous. So Mondays, it's kind of 5 to 9. And frankly, when I was leaving at 9, I was the first person leaving. And so that a lot of that is report generation for the next game. And then like Tuesday and Wednesdays, more of that. We had a game management meeting that we prepared for Coach Harbaugh and the coordinators on Saturday. So, I'd start working on that. So we go over different situations across the league and talk and then present them, and we talk about like what we would do in those situations. So that was very time consuming to prepare. We'd also prepare a cut up for the players on some of the plays that happened the last week. Stuff that what to do, what not to do, kind of thing. That takes up a lot of time. And then but the hours get better by the end of the week, right? So by like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're still working pretty late, not as bad as Monday. And then Friday, you can leave early. You can probably leave around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. But I always try to make Fridays my exploring day, so where I can do my own research and try to come up with I basically give myself some research questions to analyze, and then most of them don't amount to anything. I won't even show anybody, and then some of them are like, oh man, this was really cool. I gotta show people, and then I'll show the young coaches first, and then they'll give me feedback, and then I'll do some more work on it, and then I'll show Coach Harbaugh or whatever. And those are the most fun, because that's when you can kind of set your own agenda and look for stuff on your own. Saturday morning we had to come in. This is during the season we have our game management meeting then, but then Saturday the rest of the day like Saturday you have Saturday morning off. I did not travel with the team. I on the road. Coach Harbaugh was really nice. He let me travel whenever I wanted to, so I ended up going to kind of like call it 2 to 4 games per year on the road. And then if it's a road game, we'd fly out on Saturday. And then Sunday's game time. If it's a home game, you kind of spend it with the family. If it's a road game, you probably just sitting in the hotel doing more research or whatever, or going for a jog. Or anyway, that's what the week looks like during the season. Miami is a little bit different. I spent this past season a lot building new models on player evaluation and draft and free agents, so spent a lot of the week doing that. Whereas my colleagues, Max, would focus more on the coaching stuff that I used to do at the Ravens. So it's at the Dolphins is a little less reporting that I need to do. I'm sorry, I do some reports for the scouts. Like I'll give them a rookie report where I'll go through the league and tell them which rookies are playing well, which rookies are not playing well, that sort of stuff. But the reporting is a lot less than on the coaching side. And by the way, like both Ravens and Dolphins, you always get requests from either scouts or coaches like, hey, can you look up this for me? And then, you do these one-off studies that take up time too. But anyway, that's kind of a summary of what the season looks like. Anyone else?
What's the position that you might heavily value that maybe the average fan or casual fan doesn't or thinks is important? That's not really that important.
Oh, so like what's overvalued, sort of like the opposite of my tight end example?
Yep, that or yep.
The easy answer is running backs, I guess. But I mean, like I have a slightly different take. So the football analytics people will tell you that running backs are overvalued. You can get, you can get ones late in the draft, and like you shouldn't spend a first round pick on one, or you shouldn't sign one to a big contract. There's a little bit of truth to that. I have a slightly different take. I think that running backs do matter. I think that when you run the ball, like, running backs matter a lot. If you have an Ezekiel Elliott on your team, like that's really valuable, right? Christian McCaffrey, really valuable. I do agree that you shouldn't pay them a lot in free agency, because the problem with running backs is they peak so early. That like they peak at age 24, 25, and then they're frankly they're going downhill after that. And so if anything, it might, at least from my point of view, you should draft them, because you want to have them on their team during their best years, which is the first 4 years of their career. By the time they finish their first contract, they're almost washed up. I mean, I hate to say it. So that's when you don't want to sign them. But I wouldn't mind drafting a top running back high, first round, second round. I know a lot of analytics people will say don't do that, but if you can get Christian McCaffrey in the first round, yeah, right? I mean, the guy's awesome. Ezekiel Elliott, would I draft him in the first round? Of course I would. The guy's incredible. So I don't know. That's my take on that. But I think most fans, the running back is sort of a premier glamour position, right? Especially in fantasy football. So I think most fans probably value the running back probably more than an analytics person would. Anyway, so to answer it is I think the answer is probably running backs, even though I'm not as extreme in my views as other analytics people.
Eugene, we want to
sorry.
thank you very much for your time this evening. We'll give you a group applause here.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
And look forward to seeing you. This group will see you next summer, hopefully, and the rest of our students that are not in this class will see you sometime in July with Jack Birch once again. Very excited, and hopefully you and I can stay in touch and talk some more.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed this anytime. I love doing these things, and it was a pleasure to meet everybody, and hope you got as much out of it as I did. Thank you.
Absolutely awesome. Thanks again, Eugene.
Thanks.